to West Ham, then, if we can, Martin. Lopetegui's West Ham deal. I mean, we reported on this, that Lopetegui was lined up at West Ham just before David Moyes. It was announced that he was leaving. I mean, the treatment of David Moyes, who's given 4.5 really good years. What did you make of the timing of those respective announcements?
Yeah, I thought it's a bit strange, isn't it? I mean, there's been this issue with sort of David Moyes, West Ham, the fans, the owners, that he's never quite clicked into place, despite delivering, this European trophy, high finishes in the Premier League. I know there's this issue around his style of play, the sort of West Ham. They don't, the traditional pass and move. It's not his style, is it? So there's always been this sort of thing in the background with him, but it did sort of stick in the back of your throat slightly, the way he's having his successor effectively confirmed before he's even said goodbye. It seems a strange one.
Yeah, Miguel, how do you reflect on David Moyes' time at West Ham? Because when he arrived, they were one place second time around in 2019, one place above the relegation zone. He's done pretty well there. Substance over style, maybe. But how will West Ham fans remember him?
I think once you stand back, he has delivered a first trophy in decades. And that might be the Conference League. You can have bigger debates about the Conference League and what it should be. But it is still a trophy. It was it gave West Ham fans joy. That can't be taken away. That's part of history. And he did also restore them as a competitive, usually mid-table club. They do pay well, West Ham. They're capable of putting good squads together. But still, he kind of restored a focus. And also, I suppose, he rehabilitated his own reputation, given how he was seen after Sunderland and Manchester United. You'd expect he'd go into a much better job now. That said, there has always been this debate about his style of football, his approach. You'd always used to be said about his record in big games away to the old Big Four and then the Big Six. These are legitimate criticisms. They probably, I suppose you can't tell fans how they should feel about any given manager or how they should play. It's the emotional response they have. I suppose sometimes, just given the overall, it looked a little bit harsh for Moyes to be maybe under that much scrutiny. But equally, even if you reject that argument, it still just feels like it had run its course. I mean, because you can't get a bigger sign that's run its course, like some of the thrashings they've had in the last few weeks. And it does feel like, all right, I think this could have been handled so much better. But other than that, you think maybe Moyes might feel it's time for a change as well.
Yeah, back of the Sun says that's your lot, reference to Lopetegui being lined up, Martin. Just a thought from you on this whole business of how teams play. It used to be about getting the job done. 3 points is seemingly no longer enough. You've got to get the 3 points, but you've also got to do it with an attractive brand of football like a Manchester City or a Liverpool or Arsenal. Is that fair?
I think certain clubs are like that, and West Ham is definitely one of those. Tottenham Hotspur, perhaps Arsenal since the Wenger days. When Emery was there, the fans weren't happy with his style of play, for example. So I do think there is that. I think some clubs are more than happy to focus on results. You don't have to be playing the best football in the world as long as you're getting those results. But I think West Ham traditionally, going back to 60s, 70s, they expect something a bit different than just percentage football.
Yeah, and Miguel, the Lopetegui, what can we expect from him? Thinking back to, he's got a decent pedigree, but he left Wolves because apparently they didn't want to kind of match his ambition in terms of the spending. He'll want to bring some players in.
Yeah, I mean, also, let's not forget I suppose that's the biggest moment of his career so far, I suppose, which was the massive controversy of leaving Spain on the eve of, well, he didn't want to leave Spain. It was just announced that he was going to eventually leave the job for Real Madrid. So the Spanish Federation acted and got rid of him. That was despite, to be fair, initially good impact with Spain. Maybe not completely actually that sort of pressing approach, or at least it was a bit more of a compromised one, which we then saw at Sevilla. But it is kind of further along that spectrum of how teams play than what David Moyes was, much further along. But yeah, he's a little bit of a mixed record, Lopetegui. He's by no means a sure thing. I think he had a lot of interest in this market just because of how there are so few certainties. But he might fit West Ham, but it's one of those. I wouldn't be speaking about this being a great success or a potential success with massive certainty. It's one of these really wait and see.